Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 11th of February, 2026. And if you're in Canada or follow Canadian news, you've likely already heard about the tragic event that happened in BC yesterday. And there have been multiple reports that were coming out within a few hours of this tragic mass shooting in two different locations. And so in the home and at the secondary school. And I'm going to share some of the social media that I have posted and what other people are saying about it as well. And before I start with that, though, because I'm just going to read this. All right. This is from Stacy is Right, Political Stacy. And so the F ICE is just the latest costume swap for Free Palestine, defund the police, hands up, don't shoot, believe all women, I'm with her, no blood for oil, I can't breathe, and we are the 99%, and there's more. The hashtag rotates, the outrage gets recycled, but it's always the same sanctimonious clowns, the same hysterical tantrums, the same useless street theater, new flavor of moral superiority every couple of years, same cast of perpetual protesters, same zero actual results. It's not activism, it's a lazy taxpayer and foundation funded lifestyle subscription for spoiled narcissists who want the cheap dopamine hit of feeling holier than thou without ever having to build a damn thing, solve a real problem, take responsibility, lead anyone, or produce one measurable win in the real world. And this rhetoric that's also government funded and, like I said here, foundation funded that I've been talking about for years is causing so much division and chaos. And people like ICE are trying to create order out of chaos. And the Grammys, just how so many events are so misreported, and then people don't follow up. It's all clickbait within the first few hours, and then no one follows up on things usually, which is frustrating because, excuse me, I just got in the house. I didn't even have prepare any notes. I wasn't going to do a video again because literally I've been gone all day. But I think this is very important that people get accurate information and don't be quick to blame or judge, obviously. But so this is a post I shared earlier, like 9 hours ago. But rest in peace to the innocent victims of this mass murderer. And the mass high school shooting today in BC, Canada. They're saying original reports was that there were 6 and then 7, and then it came up to 10 people that had died during this horrendous event. But under the grace of God, one of the little girls, she was miraculously able to. She's in critical condition, but she's stable, and so there are 9 deaths, which includes the suspect, not the suspect, the person that killed these people, Jess String. I believe that's how they say his name, Jesse. And so, anyways, so just wanted to clarify that. And approximately 25 injured in my province of Tumbler Ridge, and that's where it was, a small town, apparently a community of, I think, 2,400 people, and the secondary school that he didn't even attend, by the way. I think they were saying there was a school of 160 children in that school, and so losing so many people. I mean, especially in a small town, like I was raised, like everyone knows everyone goes to school with everyone. Like you see your teachers, you see your doctors, like probably we're all born in the same hospital. Anyway, and so very tragic. Word on the street from locals was it was a teen boy dressed as a girl, which is why the police are calling it gun person, and mainstream media are as well. And so let me see. Anyways, there's more posts with that. So that was original accounts, not by mainstream media, but I'm going to get into that because even hours after that, they were still misreporting. And again, they're politicizing tragic events, and by doing that, and the messaging and the narrative that they keep spinning, I'm talking about leftist state-funded media, it gets people so riled up unnecessarily, and it's disgusting. But anyways, this is from Billboard Chris. And so this is the trans-identified shooter, Jesse String, who took the lives of his mother and another family member. So it was his step brother, I believe at this time. This is reports coming from the deputy chief commissioner in the area. All just coming out within the last hour or two. So I'm trying to give you guys accurate information here. And and there was trouble in the home for years. And he was in the process of transitioning since he was, I believe, 10 or 11 years old, very, very young. And again, this should be criminalized in Canada, just like they're doing in the US. I don't know the level of his transformation. Obviously, I don't know if he was taking hormone blockers. No one does. Or if he was taking hormone enhancement therapies, or if he was seeing a psychologist, or if he was on medications. That's all going to come out. And then obviously, if he was communicating with anyone else, people are going to dig into his social media, into his call logs, like you name it, it's going to be looked into. So when it comes to a motive, that is unclear at this point. And but again, he didn't attend that school either since he was 13 years old, and he's 17, almost 18 years old. And so he hadn't even been in school, and there were reports on that home for the last few years because of violence, aggression, mental health issues. Firearms from the home were actually taken at one point, and then there was a petition, and the person that had the legal firearms was able to get them back. And so it seems like the mother who he was living with, possibly did not hold like a firearms license or these firearms. But again, I don't know that point yet. So it could be either possibly the father, the stepfather. And again, I have no idea. I'm just making guesses, and maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But again, this will come out in the wash. I'm trying to give you updated information of this friggin' horrific, every parent's worst nightmare event. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the first picture, which I'm showing right now, is more recent. The others are from a post by his grandparents celebrating his 13th birthday in 2021. Yeah, so he was 13 in 2021. So 5 years ago. That's why, like 17, 18, I don't know. Anyways, pictures of another trans-identified male from Ontario have been widely circulated on social media, saying he was the shooter. That other man may be related to the family, but he is 100% not the shooter. So I'm just going to reiterate that because that was circulating too. And I'll show that photo. Someone needed to tell this kid the truth and help him to be happy as a man, but it's illegal to do so. And in BC, even under the NDP, like they are so woke, like like academia, not everyone obviously, but the majority of people within academia, the health institutes, my goodness, obviously the politicians, and the rhetoric that's being pushed is just unbelievable at this point in time. Okay, so it's a criminal offense of conversion therapy. So they're trying to call it gender affirming care. They've been calling that for years. I don't know how you can even say that you're affirming someone's gender when you're telling them that they were born in a different body, or affirming that when kids are confused. Their brains are not fully developed. I've talked about this stuff, so I'll try not to belabor the point. But murdered children pay the price. And I believe there was a teacher as well that was murdered. And again, that will all come out. The names of the victims have not been released yet because there's still next of kin that need to be notified. There's already enough trauma in the area, so people finding out that their loved ones died, over the news, would be horrific. And anyway, okay, so murdered children paid the price for our politicians' stupidity and cowardice. Not even our police can call him a man. They called him a gun person. All of the mainstream media reported he was a female. A cult has taken over our society. I will say, though, that when the deputy chief commissioner or chief of police in the area in Tumbler, BC, was literally just interviewed, he was asked the question, and he said it was a male, and he said that was the first time he actually received that question, and he's not beating around the bush when he's providing information that he has access to. And so this is what I'm talking about when you've got like politicians that are trying to use this to push, their own objectives. It's absolutely disgusting. And I do want to talk about Mark Carney a little bit because he has spoken about this, and it's his policies. I'm not blaming anyone. Obviously, it's this kid's anyway. We'll get into that. But even transed his own child at Tavistock in the UK when she was a minor, and so I really hope that he's willing. All I'm saying is that I'm hoping he's willing to be open and consider changing the rules and the laws right now when it comes to conversion therapy in children. Do whatever you want when you're over the age of freaking 18, 19, 21, whatever, right? But let's leave the children alone now, please. All right, because this grift is not helping anyone but the people that, again, who are making bank by confusing children and brainwashing children and indoctrinating children in cases and grooming kids, etc. And anyway, And so I'm hoping he's willing to have that conversation despite the fact that he's on that side of, again, mutilating children. So that was him when he was younger. I believe this is where they said he was with his grandparents celebrating his 13th birthday in 2021. So I guess he'd be 18 this summer, if that was taken in the summer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's him with a hunting rifle, a rifle with a scope on it. And he looks to be, might even be younger than this picture, around the same age yet. That he might have got that for his 13th birthday. That's very common in rural areas. Same thing with my family, with the kids. And him when he was younger. It's very sad. And his life was obviously lost as well. It's tragic all around, because he was still a child, and possibly failed by multiple different people. I'm going to keep on with that story. I just want to see if there's anything here. This is about the climate stuff, not the time. So look at my Instagram if you want for some posts on other things that are not related to this event. I haven't posted much today because again, I was literally gone all day. But I just want to continue on with Billboard Chris, because he's really good at sharing this information. Let's see where we start. Okay, so conversations he's had.
Well, it's freedom of...
Trying to think of all the gender studies classes I take.
Today, I'm in Los Angeles with Billboard Chris, and we're going to be asking people if children can consent to puberty blockers.
I'm a trans man. I'm a biological female, and I've been on testosterone for a couple of years.
Okay.
I could have used puberty blockers way earlier in my life.
You're saying doctors are stupid. That's what you guys are saying. And that's what, no, wait, listen.
Just the gender one.
No.
You're trying to say men should remain men and women should remain women?
Yes, that's right.
I agree with that, definitely.
We have to wait until we're 21 to drink. You have to wait till you're 16 to drive. Why do you get puberty blockers at 12? I think it's become a social movement.
Unfortunately, they're brainwashed.
It's all about option, and it's all about choice.
They tell you you will probably need a hysterectomy after 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, that was actually brought up.
So you're prepared to go through menopause as a 23-year-old?
Yeah.
At least allow them to have that choice when they're like 18, 19, 21. So this is from Steve Cooner, MLA. It is wrong for children to undergo irreversible surgical procedures or be placed on medications that cause permanent sterilization. As Premier, I'll pass a provincial legislation to defund and ban pediatric gender medicine in response to Billboard Chris. And again, I don't know if this boy, if he received any medical treatment at all for his conversion. And so I'm not saying that. I'm just giving, again, where this can lead. If not criminalized. I've done a lot of videos on the like the side effects, especially the irreversible side effects in children and throughout adulthood by taking hormone blockers or hormone therapies and treatments, like some of the individuals were talking about taking testosterone. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so she's the little girl, Maya, who's fighting for her life after the shooting in Tumbler Ridge. Okay, so Billboard Chris, the trans-identified shooter was taking SSRIs, antipsychotics, mushrooms, which caused psychosis, DMT, and smoking weed. Was he also taking estrogen? A deeply troubled young man, and to make things worse, people affirmed he was a girl. Our medical authorities are forced to affirm this delusion or they will lose their jobs, and parents have lost their children because of not wanting to affirm another gender. These cases have happened in Canada. Literally look it up. I've shared them before, and it's wild. Okay, so this is from Kelsey Sharon. Mushrooms alone don't cause that. I do agree with that, unless you're taking I've never heard or seen it, but like taking an obscene amount. And something, I don't know. But when mixed with DMT, I've never done that. And mushrooms and SSRI, I don't know. I've never taken these either. But with SSRIs, these are prescription medications that, because I have complex PTSD when I was in the military, medical professionals did put me on them. and I didn't like it. And I would try to give it a shot. I would be pressured, like, give it a shot. Like, you have complex PTSD, you're having problems sleeping, panic attacks, all this stuff. Like, you need this. And I was literally like not sleeping and stuff like that. It was just a really bad time. But I tried to give it like a shot, and I didn't feel like a human being. I was numb all the time. I like, it was just, I was either eating too much, depending on what I was taking, because I was always friggin' hungry, or I didn't have an appetite. I didn't have a sex drive. I was constantly fatigued. It was just, and again, my brain, I did not feel, I felt constantly foggy. And again, everyone has different experiences, but it's not something I ever wanted to be on for life. And things like the anti-anxiety pills and stuff like that as well. Like I was going through like really high stressful periods even in the last few years. And when we rely on medications or drugs to manage, it can be a crutch, and you do have to increase the dosages and stuff like that over time because it gets less effective. And I would rather try to do it without, like, meditation, working out, deep breathing exercises, exercising, reading, communicating with people, like, in person, touching grass. And but anyway, yeah, so that's like a huge cocktail of things. And even with marijuana, I've talked about this for years on videos, and even said, like, the hybrid strains and the increase in the THC that they've been putting in pot, it's absolutely wild, and it's absolutely impacting people and causing chemical imbalances, I think, and especially with the chemicals and the other stuff that they're putting in these in the pot that's being grown in the U.S. and Canada. And look at China's involvement with that. Tucker Carlson, I think, is the one that did an expose on that and discussing what they were doing with their grow ops, whatever you want to call them, and the intent behind that, on making it even like this is where people are getting like more cases of psychosis and schizophrenia and paranoia and stuff like that. I think it's, again, when you increase the dose at ridiculous quantities, and then you mix it with a bunch of chemicals and, like, infuse this and like, it's a recipe for disaster. But anyway, so yeah, a lot more still has to be looked into, and so more to follow. I just want to see if there's anything else. So this is her in the hospital with her mother. This is just, oh my goodness, look at this little girl. And he hadn't even attended that school, or been to school rather, in 4 years, because I'm assuming he would have been just going into secondary school, and that was during COVID when he started the transitioning, and that was the height of people wanting to trans. And then like when Trump became nominated in November of 2024 and then inaugurated last year, excuse me, there's been so many riots and protests. It's out of friggin' control. And like the division has been so much worse, where even people that I know personally have friends that are trans that moved to Canada, even though they're adults, by the way, because they felt unsafe in the US, because they felt like they were believing that, and this is real, they believed that they were going to be targeted, and that Trump and the government was going to, like, I don't know, like, murder them or target them at their home. And like, but again, like, real psychosis based on mainstream media and politicians that, are just spreading just like they're just so incompetent, respectfully speaking. It's just been nonsensical now, and it's got to stop. And hopefully it will. At least that we can have the conversation.
We have breaking news that we want to share with you that's just into our newsroom. CTV News has confirmed the identity of the suspect behind the Tumbler Ridge mass shooting. Jesse Strang is the name of the suspect. That's all the information that we know, at least at this point. 10 people, again, were killed, again, including that suspected shooter. 25 others have been injured and have been wounded, according to police. We're going to have more on the shooter's identity and what we know, too, as well as the victims, as that information becomes available. Again, the identity of the shooter has been revealed as Jesse Strang. That's, again, all the information we know at this point. We will continue to bring you the latest details as we get them. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back after this. We have breaking news that we want to share with you. For
over 5 years now, I've been on a mission to raise awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse
Yeah, so this is Billboard Chris again, obviously.
scandal in the history of modern medicine. The practice of what is known as gender affirming care, or colloquially known as trying to change the sex of children with puberty blocking drugs, the opposite sex's hormones, and surgeries. All because of this idea that these children are what is known as transgender. Now, this might be shocking to some, but I maintain that there's no such thing as a transgender child. I have had thousands of conversations on the street. I go to university campuses all around the world. I go to conferences. I work with psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, all the major conservative organizations across the West as well. And in all of my time having these tens of thousands of conversations, I haven't yet met one person who can tell me what a transgender child is. What does it mean to be transgender? What does it mean to have a gender identity? I am going to go through a few slides today to discuss what I consider to be really one of the greatest lies ever told in the history of the human race. The positive message we should be sending our kids is that they're beautiful just as they are. Instead, they're getting a message that they were born wrong and they need to change their body. The only thing that is affirming in children is self-hatred. And we'll get into what type of children these are who are identifying this way. And in particular, we'll get into what type of children are going to gender clinics and what's being done to them. But let's go to the first slide if we can. Thank you. So this is difficult to read from your distance, but this is honestly the most used resource in the world when defining what these various terms surrounding gender ideology are. So this is called the Genderbread Person. This is produced by an activist. And it defines on the left side there, under gender identity, it says that we're all on a scale of womanness or manness, and that our gender identity is based on our personality, our job, our hobbies, our likes and dislikes. And I would maintain that this is a rather regressive and sexist way to look at what your gender is. What does your job have to do with your gender? What do your hobbies have to do with your gender? Are we going to tell little boys who like to bake with their mom in the kitchen that must put them on the female spectrum of gender? That's absurd. Are we going to tell girls who don't want to wear dresses and who want to have short hair, perhaps who like to play sports with the boys,
That was me.
that makes them a boy?
No.
This is nonsensical. More than half of the women growing up are what we would call in North America tomboys. It's just more fun, perhaps. You don't have to wear a dress to be a girl. The positive message, again, we should be sending kids is there's no right or wrong way to be a boy or a girl. If a boy is more effeminate, he's not trans. He's just a boy. But this ideology has come along and it's taught our children that if they don't conform to what are these stereotypes, that they might be transgender, that they might have been born in the wrong body, and that the solution for them is to go on drugs that have never been approved for this purpose. We are giving children chemical castration drugs that are used to this day on sex offenders.
Yeah.
They're given to pedophiles. In certain states,
like that.
and even in Canada, they have been required for pedophiles to be eligible for parole, that they received these chemical castration drugs. The same drug is now called a puberty blocker. What are these drugs? These are gonadotropin-releasing hormone analogs. They stop the pituitary gland from releasing a couple hormones called luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. And these are what are responsible for the generation of your sex hormones at the onset of puberty. Girls develop estrogen. Boys produce testosterone. And this is what causes us to generate what are known as our secondary sex characteristics. All the things that happen during puberty. Boys get stronger, they get a deeper voice, they get a hairy face, hairy body. Girls develop their breasts, their hips get wider. While children are on these drugs, none of these secondary sex characteristics will develop.
Correct.
The idea being that we need to keep these children looking neutral. Because if we don't, they will develop into a man or a woman, and that will make it harder for them to pass as the opposite sex when they're an adult. So I don't want you to take my word for anything here. We're going to go over a few of the videos that these doctors at these gender clinics have produced. So first, let's hear from, this is Dr. Jeremy Carswell. She is at the gender clinic at Boston Children's Hospital. She's the director of their gender multi-specialty clinic. This was the first gender clinic that opened in the United States of America back in 2007. And she's going to talk about really what it is to be transgender.
A child will often know that they are transgender from the moment that they have any ability to express themselves, and parents will often tell us this. We have parents who tell us that their kids, they knew from the minute they were born practically, and actions like refusing to get a haircut or standing to urinate, trying to stand to urinate, refusing to stand to urinate, trying on siblings' clothing, playing with the quote opposite gender toys, things like that. There is more and more a group of adolescents that we are seeing that really are coming to the realization that they might be trans or gender diverse a little bit later on in their life. So what we're seeing from them is that they always sort of knew something was maybe off and didn't have the understanding to know that they might be trans or have a different gender identity than the one they had been assigned. So that is a growing population that we are seeing, and that's being recognized as being trans and able to be treated.
So if you have a child playing with the opposite gender toys, they might be trans and eligible to be treated. If a little girl tries to pee standing up or a boy tries to pee sitting down, they might be transgender. Guess what? If a little girl has 3 big brothers, she's going to try to pee standing up because they're all peeing standing up and it looks kind of fun. They're kids. She said if they're trying on a sibling's clothing, they might be transgender. Again, a little boy with 3 big sisters, they're all going to be playing dress up with their little baby brother. But these doctors come along who have bought into this ideology, and they teach that this natural play is a sign that your child is transgender and can be treated. And guess what? They're seeing patients as young as 3 years old, where they start socially transitioning them with a new name and pronouns. I don't want you to take just her word for it either. Here's another doctor at the same hospital.
So most of the patients that we have in the GEMS clinic actually know their gender, usually around the age of puberty. But
I just I want to reiterate the fact that this is not informed consent, and this is irreversible damage that a child does not have the ability to decide at these young ages. And we're now seeing more and more, because this has been censored because it doesn't fit the narrative, the mainstream media, at least from 2020, 2024, which it was crazy. And it's still bad, again, because Trump got in and everyone's losing it now. And but detransitioners, people that have even sued clinics, health practices, etc., because of going through these sex change operations. It's not even a sex change operation. It's like these operations, and when they were 13 years old, 16 years old, etc. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they're starting to win in the courts, and they're starting to get more and more media attention because it's incredibly important. We need to hear the stories of people that transitioned when they were children and have profound regrets and medical complications, so many medical complications, and will be lifelong medical patients. And it's just overwhelming, but their stories need to be heard. And I just wanted to go back to, because I keep saying, I keep on saying going from like boy to man. It's just really hard for me to I left my house when I was 16 years old, and I was even working before that. I was very independent, and then even being raised in a rural area, I do find I've seen this over the decades, but that the kids in rural areas where there's like farming and fishing and having to work on vehicles and this and that, you name it, they tend to develop and mature faster than city kids, and it just is what it is, and suburbs, and like with axes and firearms and hunting and fishing and all of these things, and so it's hard, right? Like so 17 and a half, technically not an adult, but he was in a rural area, and I don't know. There's nothing to that, but I just wanted to say, like, I don't mean offense when I'm trying to explain the situation. I'm just coming at it from a different perspective. And there was something else I wanted to mention as well. Yeah, and this also, 2020 onwards, like there have been targeted murders of Christians, of of kids, and of people, like, in general. And it seems to be a preponderance of one very, very, very small minority of the entire population. Even within the LGBTQ plus IA community, it's a very small percentage within that community that are trans or beyond. People are largely gay or lesbian, or at least that's the way it used to be. And I do support the community, by the way. I want to be clear on that as well. Like, whatever you do as an adult is fine, as long as you're not impacting children, or you're not some friggin' middle-aged pervert just trying to go in friggin' girls' bathrooms. Anyways, I get fired up. But it's because in 2021, and I shared this, I still, because the cops at 211 Huntmar would not investigate this, or I didn't get an update back on this, or anything else that I tried to share with them. But two men tried to break into my home. It was late at night on the 26th of September 2021. They were wearing construction vests. That's why I mistook it. I thought they were possibly tagged out from behind my house on the Heritage site. But the more I looked into the protests and the activists and the riots and stuff like that internationally, I was noticing that it was the left. They were wearing the vests. And I was posting absolutely since 2020. And actually just before that, I was even on Global TV, like kind of like on the side of like, we shouldn't be pushing like woke DEI narratives and this white supremacist narrative on mainstream media. People didn't like that, so that got cut. But so I was very vocal about this, like even in the community. And in Ottawa, there are terrorist organizations that are part of Antifa and BLM and Free Palestine, all that stuff, getting funded or duped, even people working in government, by the way, that are targeting people and doxing people. And it's terrifying. And so I lived alone at that time. Like, that was not comfortable to me. And I didn't trust 211 Huntmar, because just a few months prior to that, I had to file. And again, this is overwhelming, but like, again, I'm not a criminal at all. I'm someone that was working with multiple people trying to share medical, scientific, and government data regarding COVID. And it put a friggin' target on my back. Obviously, I've talked about this for years. Trauma. Anyway, and so they came to my house 2 different nights. Bogus claims. I was like, I can't even believe you're saying this. This is bullshit. I can prove it right now. And I'm showing them my phone. I'm showing them the opposite of what they're saying too. I'm like, actually, what you're saying, I haven't actually even said anything to you guys, but it's actually the opposite. And anyways, I was able to prove that, and they were like stunned. And then, not stunned, but like, oh, like, what can we do with this, right? And it's like, okay, fuck off and get out of my house. Sorry, I just get so mad because I was living in suburbia. I was friends with all my neighbors. During this period, we were helping each other out, giving groceries, this and that. Like, it's such a community. And then I have these friggin' multiple SUVs, lights going off from my friggin' house late at night. It was a Sunday night. And then they did the next night as well. Same shit. And I'm like, are you guys, like, I'm like, I literally just talked to people yesterday. Why are you here super late at night when I'm in bed? I'm a combat veteran, like, oh my goodness, a combat arms veteran with complex PTSD. I've had my house broken into before. I've had to move before. I don't like any of this. I'm not a criminal. In fact, while you're here, do you want to talk about COVID? Anyways. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was overwhelmed. So I told my friend, who's also like in the international security industry. He was in the US at this time. And he's like, you need to put this on the record. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to cause problems. I'm like, I've never called the cops before. And he's like, no, you have to do it. And so I did. I filed a third-party complaint because I'm like, the more we talked about it, I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, this was completely horrendous, horrific, traumatizing. And I'm like, I'm actually the good guy in this. And again, like, it sounds egotistical, but it's not. And so I didn't trust them. I'm like, I put a third-party complaint out on the record. Did nothing with it because, again, it's not even a third party. It's still internal anyways, which is bullshit. And so this happened a few months after that. And I'm like, I don't even fucking trust the cops here because like look what they already did to me. You know what I mean? And so anyways, I did. And nothing came of that. And then in 2023, March 14th, 2023, same crazy time, Autumn Rain, a man, again, calling himself Autumn Rain, trans, he doxed my house. He doxed my fucking house. On social media, sorry for swearing, And again, this is what they do. And I'm like, and then literally a week or two after that, I messaged him and I said, you know what, if you're like undercover or like law enforcement and you dox my house, like because of like your own motivations or whatever, I'm like, that's pretty disgusting. Literally within 24 hours of that, and this was an account that was active for a few years at least, deactivated within 24 hours of me sharing that and no response back. And so anyways, I tried to get that investigated as well. And did the cops do anything? No, they did not. And I have the proof. I have the screen capture with my friggin' house, doxed, calling me a friggin' bigot, the word of the day at that time. And then a week or two after that, the trans shooter in the US shot up a school, a Christian school. And so 211 Huntmar. And that's where Helen has her grief as well, where her court hearings were, where she was being investigated by her own and multiple other people I know as well. So I'm saying you're looking at Toronto precincts for corruption and people targeting people within their own organizations, and then civilians that are political dissidents. It's they need to look at Ottawa. There's a lot here. And it's terrifying to even share this, but I'll reiterate, even in November of 2023, I filed another online report to Ottawa, and again, to file a report against 211 Huntmar, and I gave names. I'm not going to give names on here, obviously. And the situation, did I get anything back? No, I didn't. And so I've been trying to get justice for that stuff now, and it's just, it goes nowhere. They're too busy looking at, I guess, hate speech now. Like if people are offensive with their words, I guess that's more important than people whose houses are actually targeted. And I'm just going to reiterate that Christian singer, I forgot what his name is, when he was in Montreal, like last year, the year before, it was someone working in government that threw that friggin' paint or smoke grenade into the church at him. And so a lot there. And anyway.
A good portion of children do know as early as seemingly from the womb, and they will usually...
That's enough from her. Seemingly from the womb.
Wild. Oh yeah. And so I am an ally. And even when I was at RMC, the first person, I guess homosexual, a gay man, first person to get married was one of my friends. And so I had friends that were gay and lesbian at RMC. And so on some weekends we would go to Montreal, we'd go to the gay village and we'd dance and party and stuff like that. It was super fun. And Blair White, she's trans, and she transitioned after the age of 18 when she did the rest of her procedures. I've shared some of her content and stuff like that as well. And so I want to say, like, what you do as an adult, like, I don't care as long as it's not impacting children or women, the more vulnerable in the societies, which should be common sense. And yeah, over the age of at least 18, like everything else.
I recorded these videos a few years ago, back in 2022. And this next one is the one that I had first tweeted out, and it started to go viral. And what happened was Boston Children's Hospital took all of their videos down off of their YouTube channel.
I'll be right back.
But not before I had recorded about 40 of them. And this next one is a sign of the insanity that is going on in these gender clinics. And I know that these are from America, but please keep in mind that all of these gender clinics follow the same standards of care written by a falsely scientific body. It's just an activist body, but it's called the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And they're currently on their 8th recommendation of what are known as the standards of care. And this is what they're doing with these young people.
Gender-affirming hysterectomy is very similar to most hysterectomies that occur. A hysterectomy itself is the removal of the uterus, the cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and the fallopian tubes, which are attached to the sides of the uterus. Some gender-affirming hysterectomies will also include the removal of the ovaries, but that's technically a separate procedure called a bilateral oophorectomy. And not every gender-affirming hysterectomy includes that, and people who are getting gender-affirming hysterectomies do not have to have their ovaries removed.
Crazy.
If you put perky music and a smiling woman, I guess you can even try to justify gender-affirming hysterectomies at a children's hospital.
Oh my God, eh?
What is being done is they are sending teenage girls into menopause, which has 100 side effects of its own.
All that stuff.
And they call this love. And we're supposed to be quiet about it. Because they've conflated gender identity with being gay. They put these letters together. 2S even for Two-Spirit, but 2S LGBTQIA+. All of these different letters representing different cohorts. And they pretend it's one big community. And they use this to silence people who dare to object to any of this. But this is child abuse. Again, based on this notion that there's a right way to be as a boy or a girl. Now, in history, this used to be called something called gender identity disorder. That term was coined in 1964 by a man named Robert Stoller, who was a professor of psychiatry at UCLA. He viewed this as a disorder. And this was almost all little boys that this used to affect. And they wanted these little boys to grow up and be more masculine. These were boys who were effeminate, who they should have just left alone. But instead they were deemed to have a disorder. And the man who coined the term gender identity, his advice was that these little boys shouldn't spend as much quality time with their mothers. You can look it up, because that might feminize them more. They should have more time with their fathers. Going back even earlier than this, this goes to the Weimar Republic, to pre-World War II era in Berlin, when a doctor, Magnus Hirschfeld is his name, he had ended up opening up this Institute for Sexual Science, and he was friends with another man named Harry Benjamin. And they performed the first ever surgeries trying to turn men into women, which of course is impossible.
I've done videos on him and that trans clinic that was in Germany.
They actually transplanted a uterus into a man at this clinic in Berlin. The doctor who performed that surgery, his name is Erwin Gorbant. He later was a member of the Luftwaffe, and he helped design freezing water experiments on Jews at the Dachau concentration camp. But Harry Benjamin was friends with this original researcher. And Harry Benjamin went on to form the Harry Benjamin Foundation, which today, it was renamed in the 90s. It's now what's known as the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And this is just an activist body pushing ideology. Because the truth of the matter is we don't have gender identities. We have personalities. And you don't have to be like everyone else in your class. You don't have to be like the other boys. If you're a boy who's not rough and tumble, who doesn't want to play sports, and maybe you're more sensitive, that's okay. You're still a boy. But this message we are sending to our children is that they have a brain detached from their biological reality, from their genitalia, which is completely and utterly false. It's been debunked. There's no evidence to support this whatsoever. But this ideology was dreamed up by a few individuals. And then in the 70s, Professor Paul McHugh at Johns Hopkins University, which was one of the leading universities pushing this through a doctor called John Money. Now, Dr. John Money was looking into disorders of sexual development. These are what activists today would call intersex disorders, but nobody is intersex. Nobody is between sexes. Nobody is a third sex. There are people who are born with some disorders. These are a variety of medical conditions. The term intersex is an umbrella term for a variety of disorders of sexual development, all of whom affect males or females. Now, trans activists will try to use this to get you caught up in this discussion as though they're not all male or female. It's really a diversionary tactic, which we should largely ignore. It makes sense to understand a little bit about this. But on the subject of gender identity, it's got nothing to do with that. Gender identity is teaching that people have a gender, a circular definition, that they have a gender that might be different than their sex. Well, what is gender? We should always be able to define these terms.
Ideology.
And what is gender?
Sex is not.
Leftist university professors have redefined this term. For the longest time, we all used it as a synonym for sex, perhaps a more polite word. But today it means something else entirely. It just means a feeling. Your gender, according to feminist scholars in universities is whatever you feel it to be. But this, of course, is not true. There is such a thing as reality in the world. And when we become unhinged from reality, all sorts of bad things happen. And where we had this small cohort of mostly men wanting to identify as women, what's happened in the last 15 years in particular is perhaps to buy legitimacy for their own issues. This has been pushed on to kids.
For money.
And what used to affect maybe 1 out of 30,000 boys 30, 40 years ago, if you look at the statistics, gender identity disorder affected just a tiny handful of the population. This has now exploded. It's a social contagion spread primarily via social media, but from peer to peer and through schools. And it's a social contagion primarily affecting girls, as all social contagions do. It's always the girls that these social contagions really come for. And so when we look at these kids at these gender clinics, we find that on average, and this is according to the Tavistock's own data, the Tavistock was the gender clinic in the UK, seeing all of the children.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hilary Cass, an eminent pediatrician, conducted a review, a systematic review, the gold standard in medicine. It's a 388-page report. I encourage everyone to at least read the summary. But that report, after several years, found that there was no evidence of psychological improvement for any of these kids receiving these drugs and hormones and surgeries. The evidence is scant, it's non-existent, or it's extremely low quality. There was a systematic review done in Sweden. It found the same results. The most thorough review done to date was done this year by the HHS, Department of Health and Human Services in the United States. And it's peer reviewed. Even the Washington Post said that it was a very balanced report. There's no arguing with these reports. They've gone over all of the peer-reviewed journals, all of the studies, and they've all come to the same conclusion, that there's no evidence this is helping kids. So if it's not helping kids, what are we doing sterilizing kids?
Good question.
These children, according to the Tavistock in the UK, 70% of these kids had 5 or more coexisting mental health comorbidities. They didn't just have 1 or 2 other problems, they had 5 or more. They have autism.
Trauma.
In likely a majority of cases. I want to say a strong majority for the more mild cases. But we know from the Tavistock that 35% of their patients, out of a sample of 1,069 kids, 35% had moderate to severe autism. These are kids who have suffered sexual abuse in a majority of cases. The president of the American College of Pediatricians tells me personally that he estimates it's about 60% of the kids have had sexual abuse. Anecdotally, if you read the stories of these people, I would say it's even higher, especially if you listen to the stories of detransitioners.
And
these are kids with eating disorders.
I really think that people do need to listen to the stories of the detransitioners. And I'll even say, because I watched every friggin' episode of RuPaul. Again, these were adults. But when you listen to their stories, every single one of the people that were on that show had trauma, huge trauma. In their lives.
Borderline personality disorder. Oftentimes, according to one older study, 52% of the mothers of these boys had borderline personality disorder themselves, compared to just 6% of the general population. Isn't that interesting? If this is something that's innate, why is it that more than half of the mothers had borderline personality disorder? Because it's not innate. This didn't exist when I was a child. There weren't children going around thinking they were born in the wrong body. Tomboys were just tomboys. That was great. They should be celebrated. You should be celebrated for who you are, not told you're supposed to be something you're not. Now, this next video is a young woman I ran into at UCLA, the University of California in Los Angeles. Her name is Clementine. This is a 6-minute long video, and she's going to tell us her story. I randomly ran into her here. Yeah, come on in. What's your name?
My name's Clementine.
Nice to meet you.
I've actually seen your stuff online, and I'm
Yeah.
a huge fan. I was on puberty blockers. I started when I was 12, and I was on testosterone from 14 to 17, and I got top surgery at 17. Totally messed my life up. So I just want to say you're doing a good thing.
Wow.
I can't believe people disagree with you on this. As a former child transitioner, I'm just appalled that people have anything to question you about. So I salute
Well,
you.
I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. I'm glad you are through it now. Thank you so much for speaking up. That's extremely valuable because a lot of people are afraid to.
Yeah.
So, do you mind if we have a little conversation about it?
course, yeah.
Okay, come on in this way just a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hi.
So, your name again?
My name's Clementine.
Clementine. So, Clementine went on puberty blockers at what age?
12.
And you detransitioned at?
I detransitioned earlier this year, actually, but I had been going off testosterone since about 17 because
Okay.
it gave me psychosis.
When did they put you on testosterone?
I was 13.
Oh my god. Okay, I gotta mute myself.
And when
here. I
did
haven't
you
watched
have
this.
a double mastectomy?
I had a double mastectomy at 14. I'm currently going through the process of getting reconstructive surgery, and it was harder to get that approved. I actually wasn't able to get it approved by my insurance.
Right.
But it was much harder to get surgery for that than it was to actually get the original top surgery procedure.
For everyone watching this who says this isn't happening, well, it
Yeah.
happened to Clementine. At 14, a double mastectomy, puberty blockers at 12, testosterone at 13. How old are you now?
I'm 20 now. I just turned 20.
Have you ever talked to anyone about suing?
I can't disclose
Okay.
what's going on, but yeah, it's
Okay, because I'm
That's
here to help
definitely
you
something I'd
find
like
someone
to
if you
do.
need someone.
yeah. I've spoken. Do you know Campbell Miller Payne?
I do.
I've talked to them a bunch.
Fantastic. So Campbell Miller Payne is a law firm for dads in Texas who all left their previous law firms and started a new one just to sue for kids and young people like Clementine who've been harmed by this madness. And these are great guys. They could have done anything to make a bunch of money, but they started a law firm. They left all their previous firms. They have 18 kids between them, and they're going to cause a lot of waves. I know some good lawsuits coming too, which we aren't allowed to announce yet.
Yeah, I really
But
hope so.
that's one of the way
I don't
out of this
know-
mess we've gotten into.
I don't know how a child could consent to the loss of their fertility.
Yeah.
Children can't conceptualize that, and I think people don't understand that.
So what got you into this in the first place?
I was sexually abused as a child, and that was totally ignored. But I started having a lot of negative feelings about my body around puberty, and I was egged on by some guidance counselors that I might be transgender, and I later decided that I was really a boy, and my life would be so much easier because of all this abuse that I had experienced because of being a woman, and I totally just rejected womanhood because I thought that all that it meant for me was pain. Yeah, that's kind of how I got there, but
And what got
getting
you out?
out of it, getting out of it was a really difficult process for me, but mostly it was just getting the right therapy. I went to DBT therapy, and we never discussed my gender. We only discussed my sexual abuse, and after I dealt with that, I realized I didn't want to do this anymore, and the loss of my fertility and my body just started to really sink in, and I realized, oh my God, I've built this entire persona around misogyny.
Do you know for sure that you've lost your fertility?
I'm not 100% sure,
Okay.
but
But you were on
I'm not the
testosterone
most
for
hopeful. I
4
never
years.
went through female puberty, so yeah.
Right. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for speaking up. It's
Thank you
extremely
for
brave.
speaking to me.
It's extremely powerful. I'm so sorry what was
So
done
brave.
to you, but this is going to help other people not
I'm so glad
to
you're
fall
doing
down
what
this
you're
rabbit
doing.
hole.
Keep going.
One last question, and just come in a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Before you started on the puberty blockers, you've just shared with me this sexual abuse that happened to you before you started on those.
Yeah.
Did anyone ask you about that?
No, not was that brought up once during the meeting. I was only asked, do I like hanging out with boys? Do I get fit in better with boys? What kind of things am I into? Just really surface level questions.
Wow.
And I was prescribed puberty blockers 30 minutes into my appointment after being out for 4 months.
First appointment.
Yes.
With
Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy at Los Angeles Children's Hospital.
Johanna Olson Kennedy. I've talked a lot about her, and I'm going to put more about her underneath this video She's
Yeah.
running the busiest gender clinic in the country at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. She received a grant from the NIH a few years ago for $5.7 million. And part of that grant application, she asked for approval to give opposite sex hormones to kids as young as 8 years old.
Yeah, I was
She
part
is
of
one
that
of the biggest, if not the biggest, gender ghoul in the United States of America.
She should be.
Did she talk to your parents?
She did, and she told them the same thing that she tells everybody, that I was deeply suicidal, and that if they didn't let me transition, I would be at high risk for suicide. And I only attempted to kill myself after I transitioned.
Oh,
So she convinced
Yeah.
them
Well, I've
that
said
they had
that.
two options, a dead daughter or a live son.
There are more studies that that say that after like at the 5 to 7 year period when during a person's transition process is when there are more like the likelihood of suicide actually does increase. In the first year or two, there's a lot of support for people. More often like within the first year, and then afterwards not, and then they're left alone oftentimes with medical complications, or again still trauma that's unresolved, not healed, et cetera, and then so things get progressively worse, and then again people that wanted families realizing that they're not fertile, or they did things to their bodies, that they absolutely regret afterwards, like even people talking about regretting removing their penises and stuff. Like, even saying this out loud is just wild, but this is the reality of the world. Anyways.
Yes.
Did she even use those words?
She did use those exact words.
Wow. Give me a hug.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you for talking to me. All right. I'll see you later.
That was so
standard story. Listen to any of the detransitioners' testimonies. They're all like that. And it's not just America. It's where I'm from, Canada. It's Europe. It's Australia. It's all of these Western nations pushing this because they all follow the WPATH standards of care. And in this most recent edition of the WPATH standards of care, being a eunuch is a gender identity.
I don't know what that is.
Being a eunuch.
I don't know what that is.
If you're a young man and you feel like on the inside you're a eunuch,
should I look this up?
They will do surgery to make you one. If you feel you are non-binary, meaning neither sex, and you want what is called a nullification procedure, male or female, they will cut off your sexual organs. They'll do a hysterectomy to give you like a Barbie look. This is not science. This is mad science. This is Frankenstein science. She's sterilized. She can never have kids, and she's just 20 years old, just turned 20. Her life hasn't even barely begun. And the most valuable thing was taken from her, her chance to have a family of her own. And this has been done to thousands of kids, and it's being done to thousands of kids today. And it's being done largely in an environment of silence.
I didn't know what eunuch meant, and so I had the wrong spelling, but it's EUNUCH, I believe, refers to a person assigned male at birth who has undergone castration, historically serving in royal courts, though some modern individuals identify as eunuchs as a non-binary or transgender gender identity that is distinct from the name eunuch. Anyway.
Because people are too afraid to talk about it. Why?
Because look what happens to us when we
They're
do.
sterilizing autistic children and a lot of girls and boys who've been sexually abused. We shouldn't be quiet about it. We should all be yelling from the rafters. I quit my job, not the most normal thing to do. I quit my job to stand on the street wearing a sign because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I'd actually put up a billboard in my city of Vancouver that said, "I love J.K. Rowling," because she's spoken out about this and she's spoken up for women, of course. And they took it down after a day because a Vancouver politician said it was hate speech. It had a big red heart on it.
Hate speech. Yeah.
So then I
We'll
did
go
a whole
up to that,
bunch more
but
in the
yeah,
United States. And then in Canada, where I was stuck, it was during COVID. We couldn't even leave the country. I said, well, you can take down my billboard, but you can't take one off my back. And I had some signs made. And I know I look silly, but for some reason I get respect. And I traveled across the country and then across America and now the world. And I just keep going one conversation at a time because I have faith in my fellow man. I have faith in you that you're going to learn things here today and take this forward with you and start more conversations. And let's look what's been done in Europe. So in England, thanks to the Cass review, they stopped giving kids puberty blockers. They didn't stop doing the cross-sex hormones, although it's been reduced. Scotland went even further and they stopped the cross-sex hormones. Although now they're going kind of backwards in England, in the UK, and they want to do a clinical trial. They have 20 years worth of data, but they want to do a new 2-year trial. It won't have any long-term information. So people are in the process of suing to try to stop this because it's madness. But in Finland, they were the first to break ranks with this. They stopped it there. Sweden stopped it, basically. It's still done in a few exceptional cases. Norway and Denmark pretty much followed suit. New Zealand, just this last month, announced that they are following the Cass review, so they've stopped it. 28 states in the United States have stopped it. You've got 50 different states there, each with their own health departments, so you have to stop it in each jurisdiction. But in even some of the Democrat states, the gender clinics are shutting down. The woman, Johanna Olsen Kennedy, who transitioned young Clementine there, her gender clinic at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles was shut down.
Amazing.
Because the Trump administration was pulling funding.
Yeah,
but here on the continent of Europe,
not all, but there
hasn't been a ton of progress.
Funded to mutilate children.
And the leaders of society are still too hesitant to talk about this. And I get it. Until you understand how to speak about this, it can be an awkward thing to speak about. And when you know that activists are going to come and they're going to try to demonize you, I suppose that can be a bit scary for most people. I just lean into it. They can say whatever they want about me. It doesn't matter. I know who I am. My family knows who I am. And I think everyone who's ever heard me speak has an idea that this is all evidence-based and we're trying to protect kids here. But again, this all goes back to the initial lie. And it is a lie. It's a lie that we have a gender identity. We don't. There's no such thing as a transgender child. They're called boys and girls. And they're perfect just as they are. If they want to do something to their body as an adult, that's a different conversation. Yeah. The doctors should still be following the Hippocratic Oath, which is first do no harm. They should be screening for trauma. They should be screening for abuse. They should be treating mental health problems with mental health solutions, not just taking money and getting out the scalpel. Now, this next video, that is on the right side of the screen. That is a male named Marcy Bowers. That's a man. The woman in the center is Dr. Johanna Olsen Kennedy. This was a leaked video. This was an internal video conference they were having. And they're discussing the ability of boys who started puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2. Tanner stage 2 is the beginning of puberty. This is when you first develop pubic hair. It's when girls' breast buds first start to form. So these kids are all 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's when they start them on these drugs. Again, these drugs have never been approved for this purpose. These are prostate cancer drugs. These are drugs for endometriosis, for uterine fibroids. But they happen to stop puberty. So they're discussing how it's destroying the future sexual function of all these boys. They admit to this, and I want you to hear it from them.
The second is was an observation that I had that every single child who was, or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm. I mean, it's really about zero. These are these are just assigned male at birth, so trans feminine, and it's because they never in their lives are exposed to testosterone. That doesn't change. That doesn't change. So blockers prevent the rise of testosterone, and they don't really go on testosterone at or around surgery or into adulthood. And so we don't know. They're going to have this sensation. There's no question about that. But are they going to be able to achieve sexual satisfaction? It's important in relationships. And I know that from my work with female genital mutilation survivors, that the lack of being able to be intimate with a partner is very important. And so this is what really raised the red flag for me, is to say, look, we need to have our eyes open about it. I think it's been beneficial talking about it. I know Joe and many others have reported to me, you know, they've changed their approach a little bit in their informed consent models, and that we're talking about masturbation now. We're talking about, okay, that's an area of the body that's got very dysphoric for you, but you know what? It's all a penis is just a large clitoris. I mean, it's all the same material.
Stupid.
It really is.
I'm sorry, I just get so angry.
So you know,
can her clit, since you're saying that word, ejaculate sperm? You dumb idiot.
Use it for the pleasurable purposes, partially that it was intended, and you know, we'll see what happens. But these are to be answered questions. So, can we avoid puberty and get good adult results? And secondly, how do we assure someone that they're going to be able to be sexually responsive? Do we remove the blockers during the course of their adolescence and let a little bit of puberty come back? Do we delay it a little bit, maybe into Tanner's 3 or 4, maybe before they have their first orgasms? Maybe.
I apologize for the graphic nature of this. It's important to understand that's the president of WPATH. That all the countries that you represent, they write the standards of care. All the countries, gender clinics, all follow their standards of care. The UN pushes their standards of care. The WHO pushes their standards of care. That's the president. And what's he saying there? He's saying, what do we do? Do we let a little bit of puberty happen? Do we take them off the blockers, let a little puberty happen? Do we delay the puberty blockers? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. He admits it. This is an experiment on children, the most vulnerable children among our society, the kids who've had terrible upbringings. I ran into a young man on the streets of Vancouver last week. I have this video up. You can go to my YouTube channel. He was sexually abused when he was 5. He was raised by Wiccans, occultists, Satanists. His memory's foggy. He has a memory of his mom taking him into some other room and crying after this sexual abuse at 5. He remembers satanic symbols, pentagrams. He ended up being taken into state care when he was 8 years old. He was in 14 different foster homes, 3 group homes during his adolescence. And in one of these foster homes, he started growing his hair long. And some people said that he looked pretty. And maybe that meant he was really a girl. And so for over 20 years of his life, he identified as transgender. This was a deeply abused little boy. These are the types of cases of these young children who are being harmed. They're not all that extreme. But there's always, as I mentioned, 70% of the time, there's 5 or more coexisting mental health comorbidities. So is it the autism, is it the sexual abuse, or is it trans? Trans, a term that we can't even define. It means their gender identity doesn't match their sex assigned at birth. That's what the activists might tell you. Well, what's gender identity? The first slide I talked about today, what's gender identity? It is, well, it's your personality, it's your job, hobbies, likes, dislikes, roles in society, and expectations upon you. That's how they define it. Sexist, regressive, nonsense. So what happened we don't have too much time. These are some more videos from these people. I'm not going to get into them all. These are internal documents that were leaked. These are known as the WPATH files. If you go to my website, wespeaktruth.com, go to resources, you'll find these documents. You'll find the CAS review. You'll find the HHS review. But this, again, is the president saying that the fertility question has no research that I'm aware of. as puberty onset allows for fertility options, if they allow puberty to begin, they can perhaps harvest sperm and eggs, which they can use later on to perhaps have success with fertilization. But he says puberty onset allows for fertility options while blockers preclude those opportunities. He's admitting that they're sterilizing kids. He repeats again here in writing, I'm unaware of an individual claiming ability to orgasm when they were blocked at Tanner stage 2. What 12-year-old boy can consent to throwing away his future adult sexual function? Of course, none of them. This is why the main sign I wear always says children cannot consent to puberty blockers. And those videos I just quickly went past, they admit to that in those videos. I'm happy to send you anything you need to know in the future. So this is another doctor admitting that, so this is a female they're talking about. She was on testosterone, T, for 8 to 10 years, and she developed hepatocarcinomas, liver cancer. To the best of my knowledge, it was linked to her hormonal treatment. I'm not going to use the wrong pronouns. I'm going to use pronouns that describe someone's sex, just so you know. She was a midlife. Unfortunately, I don't have many more details since it was so advanced that she opted for palliative care and died a couple months later. This is a 13-year-old that wants testosterone. And of course, she's also has an eating disorder. This is very common, eating disorders. This is another doctor saying trauma. Trauma is common among trans clients. I was surprised to find several of my clients met criteria for dissociative disorders. So this is what used to be called multiple personality disorder. These are people who've had severe trauma, oftentimes sexual abuse at a young age. And it goes on to say here, this doctor goes on to say, I was wondering if there's been any difficulty with the system agreeing to transitioning medically, especially given that not all the alters have the same gender identity.
Alters.
Not all the alternate personalities have the same gender identity. Insane. And they're transitioning these people. This one, someone can have schizophrenia and be ready for surgery. It's just a matter of what you see concerns are. So it doesn't matter what's wrong with these kids. They're transitioning them. The start of this in the modern era, it's known as the Dutch Protocol. And this started in the late 90s in Amsterdam. And it started at first with one girl who had severe distress about her sex. And so for the first time, she was given this prostate cancer drug, these puberty blocking drugs. And they ended up conducting a trial with 70 children in total in the first decade of this century. That trial has never been able to be replicated. There's all sorts of problems with its methodology. You can read about it later. But from the Dutch was born what's known as the Dutch Protocol. And their rules were they wouldn't give puberty blockers until 12 years of age, assuming the child had hit Tanner stage 2. And they wouldn't start the cross-sex hormones until 16. And they would screen for these other comorbid factors, other mental health issues. That's all gone out the window. There are no safeguards in place anymore. In fact, to even suggest that a child needs therapy is frowned upon because that's deemed to be questioning a child's gender identity. Why would you need therapy for your gender identity when your gender identity is just a natural part of your human existence? This is the thinking. And about 3 years ago at the WPATH conference held in Montreal, during the opening speech, some protesters got up and they were calling for the total abolition of all therapy. That sounds crazy. What response did they get? A standing ovation.
Montreal, 2 hours away.
Because over the years, what's happened is this isn't a mental health problem anymore. They even don't call it a disorder. In 2013, in the DSM-5, it went from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria. Now they just call it gender incongruence. And if a little girl says she's a boy, if a boy says he's a girl, they say, wonderful. We're so glad you figured out your gender identity. And they start them on this treadmill of medicalization. Historically, this is going to be one of the last things I'll discuss. Historically, when you look at the academic studies into gender dysphoria before they started drugging these kids, and I have all of these major studies that were done, the numbers in these studies aren't huge because this was such a small problem. But the largest study had 139 participants. And they followed them from a young age, 4 or 5 years old, all the way into their 20s. 87.8%, this study was all boys, 87.8% of them grew out of it. Their gender dysphoria desisted when they went through puberty. And all the studies show similar numbers. Puberty is the cure for gender dysphoria, gender distress. Now we block the cure. Now we don't let these kids grow up. And a majority of those kids, according to all those studies, grew up to be gay. Makes a bit of sense when you think about it. We're talking really effeminate little boys with distress about being a boy. Yes, some of them grew up to be gay. And from the Tavistock in England, from all the most current studies, we see similar numbers that a majority of these children would grow up to be same-sex attracted. So what is it? I don't call kids gay or trans. I don't call any kid trans. I don't call kids gay. We shouldn't assign sexual orientation to children. Let's just let them be children. But are these individuals, are they gay or are they trans? This is a homophobic movement. This is taking individuals who would grow up to be gay and it's telling them there's something wrong with them. They need to change their bodies. It's the most homophobic movement. In Iran, 10 years ago, on the women's national soccer team, there were 8 men. Because it's illegal to be gay in Iran. But because of the first Ayatollah, he issued a fatwa. There's a story behind this. You can go read it. It's okay to be trans. So the gay men in Iran, if they want to stay alive or stay out of prison, they transition. And Iran is the number 2 country in the world for sex reassignment surgeries behind Thailand. It's the only Muslim nation that does that. But yes, this is a homophobic movement as well. So we have Finland. They were the first to break with the WPATH standards of care. Sweden followed. The UK followed with the CAS.
Thailand, there's a huge ladyboy industry, and I've seen it for myself. And there's a huge, huge money in it. And so there's people that come from all over the world in order to purchase these ladyboys, these prostitutes, escorts. It's a huge industry.
Review. The HHS review in the United States is the most thorough review to date. It contains a section on the ethics of this whole thing. And so we're making progress. 28 states have stopped this. And I'm going to close with one 2-minute video of another young detransitioner woman, because, again, you need to hear it from them.
I can't believe this happened. I ruined my life. When you break it down, I decided that I didn't want to be a woman before I had ever even experienced being a woman. I had no idea what being a woman was like because I was a child. And now I feel like I will never entirely know. I want to say that I really feel like some people in the trans community and the trans medicalists and the doctors really, really target the most vulnerable of us. I have borderline personality disorder, and I know for a fact that this is the reason for my transition. It's a very difficult mental illness, and one of the core features is not having any sense of self or identity. And my doctors knew this. I told them, even though they didn't ask, that I had been diagnosed with BPD. And it was all fine to them. I wasn't happy as a girl, so that meant I was a boy and I was trans. And so I just took the cure that was handed to me. I was told that I was being given a cure, and I wouldn't want to kill myself anymore. And it wasn't true. I didn't want to cry in this video, but this is such a hard thing to talk about. I lost a lot of things to this, and I just hope that anyone else who's going through what I went through as a young girl will not be prescribed hormones and surgery because of other things. You know, there are so many mental health disorders that make you hate your body, and the solution isn't to change your body, it's to fix your brain, you know? I just don't want anyone else to ever feel this way. I lost my voice. I lost my chest. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have kids. I feel like no one wants to date me or love me because I'm ruined.
It's child abuse, pure and simple. And it's up to us to stop it. There's no one else that's going to stop it. It's up to us. So if we have to get a little bit uncomfortable to start these conversations, we need to start them because all the evidence is on our side. The really the only argument that the left ever has, and I say the left, it's really predominantly the left pushing this everywhere, but the activists, let's say, their only argument, they'll say that kids are going to kill themselves if you don't transition them. Because the only way you can justify this sort of abuse is to say that kids will die if you don't do it.
That's always the number one argument whenever I discuss this.
There's no evidence for that either. Both of these testimonies, they said they were suicidal after. The only study that's been done was out of Finland, where they looked at 24 years worth of data at their gender clinic from 1996 to 2019. 2,000 kids, more than 2,000 kids went through the gender clinic. They didn't all get medicalized. And they compared them to a sample group of 17,000 kids. Over the 24 years, there were 7 suicides. Worked out to an annualized rate of 0.052. And of course, every suicide is a tragedy. There were 17 suicides in the sample group. So the rate of suicide was slightly higher. But this is no epidemic of suicides. And the common denominator wasn't gender, it was other psychiatric comorbidities. And the only way they could really reliably determine who was at risk of suicide was more than 100 psychiatric visits. So we just can't let them use these arguments to try to silence us because there's no truth to any of it. The truth is that our children are precious and beautiful just as they are, and we're harming them. First of all, with this ideology, it's psychologically harming them, and the physical harm being done to them is inexcusable. So thank you so much for coming today. Appreciate it.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I didn't mean for it to be this long. And, but I mean, I just had to keep listening to this. This was really educational, really well done. And so, you know, he'll never watch this, but thank you to him for even putting that together. It was so incredibly well summarized. I look like garbage right now. I don't have my lights on, all of them, just because it's hurting my head. A few more things to get into. So this is from Mario for the North.
nearly $1.5 billion each and every single year on CBC, and this is what we get. Check this out.
Also, a note on our coverage of this story today. We know at CBC News that there are people online who are talking about the possible suspect and other details surrounding this case, but this information has not been confirmed to us by either sources or law enforcement. And we want to stick to confirmed details only as we continue to cover this story.
This is Cosman, a journalist for Juno News who broke the story on the identity of the shooter and the fact that they were trans. He said it's not a journalist's job to wait for verification. It's literally your job to verify information for the public yourself. Since the pandemic, establishment outlets are happy being government stenographers. They sit around and wait for the government to tell them what to say. Yes, as first responders, RCMP are a primary source. They are not the only source. There are family members, eyewitnesses, and so on. It's a journalist's responsibility to find and talk to them. This is Kian, one of the co-founders of Juno News. He said journalism is supposed to bring clarity to people in times of chaos. That's why Juno's Cosman put several of his own kids to bed last night and stayed up until the early hours of the morning, uncovering the truth for the parents of the Tumbler Ridge, and I'm going to say victims. He got it right when the stakes were as high as they ever could be, when there was fake news flying from every direction. Knowing that the gunman was not, in fact, a woman will not bring an ounce of relief to the family of the victims. But arming them with the facts is our job. I'm proud that Juno News doesn't have a standing policy like the CBC does to lie about facts and protect their ideology. And he's right, follow Juno News today if you care about supporting journalism that doesn't bend to woke political pressure. Of course, what does CTV do? They put out this piece. Mass shootings in Canada have helped prompt changes to firearm laws over the decades. What about mental health?
Exactly.
You should see some of the...
Well, look what has been done to the children since COVID. It's going to be years. I was saying this, this is such a freaking Groundhog Day thing. But we have years of unfucking our country because of what the liberals, and the NDPs have done to it, and Bloc. But come on.
The stuff that Juno News is putting out about the Tumbler Ridge shooter's Reddit account, it's disturbing. I'm going to use the word alleged. It's being alleged that this is the shooter here that said, I went crazy and burnt my house down my second time trying shrooms, but I still have a desire to try alternatives. And it goes on to detail. Put it through AI. I asked Grok, I said, is it possible that this is the shooter? And this is why I'm using allegedly, but Grok said yes, that it is. That the same person that posted this on Reddit is the same person as the shooter. Again, Juno News was the only one that confirmed the identity. It's unreal that CTV News would identify the shooter by name, not give credit to Juno News, and not tell you that it was a man. We spend nearly
And I'm just going to finish off with one more video. It's going to be short, don't worry. It's just to give an example of how they were reporting it. CBC News, of course, comments still off. State funded media. I'm not going to put the whole thing on, but listen to her.
Hours ago now for Tumbler Ridge. It covers actually quite a large area. Tumbler Ridge, a small community. In addition to that, Chetwynd, Dawson Creek also included in this. RCMP saying that all of these areas, particularly Tumbler Ridge, is in a shelter in place. Do not leave your homes and do not go to the school unless directed to do so. There are 2 schools in Tumbler Ridge. There is the secondary school as well as the elementary school. And according to the school district website, there is a lockdown and a hold and secure in place for the 2 schools. What we know from the latest RCMP press release, they are saying that the original suspect is believed to have been found dead. They are right now working to confirm whether or not there is a second suspect in this. And according to the initial active shooter alert, that active shooter was described in that alert as being a woman, brown hair, wearing a dress. They are also working to determine whether...
A woman, brown hair, wearing a dress.
There are injuries, whether there are victims in this. We have confirmed with Stars Air Ambulance out of Grand Prairie that they have dispatched.
Anyway, just annoying. And so it's my mission. Well, my mission. I want to defund the CBC or force them to have to be less biased. and their contract, something's going on where there's some kind of a renegotiation coming up next year. They're going to announce it at the end of this year, and you have to provide interventions, submit it online, and they may even ask you to go in person to discuss. And I'm openly willing to do that. And then I have templates too that I put out on my social media. You can literally just copy and paste an example that I wrote up already of an intervention to give to CBC. And but you also have to have examples of where you have attempted to reach out to CBC to give them information, and they still continue to spread misinformation, didn't follow up, didn't take that information. And I have so much of that, even calling their tip lines, so many emails, conversations with so many journalists that I tried to share information with during COVID and beyond. Fish kisses. So anyways, I hope it get defunded. On that note, yeah, just to bring this back to reality before I just leave it like that. At the end of the day, a horrific event happened yesterday in Canada, and a lot of people woke up this morning again without their loved ones. And like for a parent, like it's just, and like that would be the worst nightmare, right? And it's just, yeah, it's sad. And I just really hope that we can just at least learn from this. There's a lot of takeaways, and I do think that there's a lot of things that really need to change in Canada, and I hope they do. And I hope that even if it's with Carney, if he decides to change things, you know, and you know, less of this woke DEI critical race theory bullshit, and so many other things, then like, yeah, I would, you know, we're desperate. They're even talking about the possibility of coming together to not have an election coming up this spring against more taxpayers' dollars being wasted, and it doesn't look like it would be a wash, essentially, just like 2021. It would just be like, it would likely still be like a minority government, possibly, maybe a majority, but I friggin' like that would be worst case scenario. But I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, we'll see. On that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has I don't know, like, hug your kids, like call your mom, and have a good day.